As the sun shines upon the earth, awakening to grow seeds that lie dormant in the soil, may the light of wisdom illuminate our hearts and minds, truly awakening us to our self-centered ignorance, but by this insight stir us to strive for a life of deeper understanding and enlightenment. May the life of compassion warm an innate humanity in our hearts, that we may truly appreciate and respect the intrinsic value and dignity of our being. Though our lives are but fleeting ripples in the eternal flow of time, we each leave our unique influence upon our surroundings. So in deep gratitude, let us realize this oneness of all life, the heart of which is compassion. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Good morning, and thank you for joining us for this tradition of honoring and remembering the fact that our today is the result of those who have preceded us. So that's the affirmation of this sense of what we call the oneness of life, the basic reality that we appreciate as the basis of our very existence, that we are all sharing this life that is immeasurable, meaning beyond our comprehension. It is just the experience of this moment in eternity that we receive as our human life. And the memorial service tradition is one of the ways to cultivate, nurture, affirm that sense of our being, one with the immeasurable life that we express with the saying of Namo Amida Butsu, the oneness of life in gratitude. This morning, I'm going to introduce a new verse, a new group recitation that was composed by our Monshu, Reverend the Bishop, the Monshu Kojun Otani. And so this is the portrait we have on the wall here. He is our current titular head of our Jodo Shinshu Honganji, Nishi Honganji tradition. And he's the 25th generation descendant of Shinran Shonin. And he's a young man, but he is now the head of our denomination. And recently he composed another verse for us to recite at various occasions. So I've been asked to introduce this particular new verse. And for today, I'll just introduce the English translation or English version of what's been titled Our Pledge. And I was informed that this was used as another way of expressing our sense of our oneness that popularly, I think as we were growing up here at the temple anyway, by the recitation of what's been referred to as the golden chain. So I think those of us who were raised in the tradition are familiar with this kind of classic group recitation. It's called the golden chain of love. And that particular verse was composed some 80 years ago by the couple that was head of the English department of the Honpa Honganji Mission of Hawaii, Reverend Ernest and Dorothy Hunt. And so in one of their service books in English, they prepared this little verse that was helping to introduce the basic ideas of Buddhism to the then second generation English-speaking members of the temple of our tradition. And so that's kind of been used for these generations now, and I think some of us have it in memory, that it goes, I am a link in the Buddha's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I must keep my link bright and strong. I will try to be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will try to think pure and beautiful thoughts, to say pure and beautiful words, and to do pure and beautiful deeds, knowing that on what I do now depends not only my happiness or unhappiness, but also those of others. May every link in the Buddha's golden chain of love become bright and strong. and may we all attain perfect peace. Okay, so that's a very embedded in. I don't memorize a lot of things, but that's one of the things I happen to have memorized, even though over the generations it's gone through various adjustments, terminology and so forth, trying to bring it up to date. And so it's a little different than the original that appeared in this English Gatha book in the 1930s, about the same time that our temple was built here. But anyway, so with that, today I'd like to introduce this new version of what the Gomonshu Otani has prepared for us to bring us together. And I'll just read it and you can take it as you wish. But it's originally in English. It's originally in Japanese, of course, but here is the English translation that has been introduced. So it goes, Our Pledge. Okay? And so as we gather, just like we recite the three treasures together, this would be another way of bringing us together in Sangha. But here's the English translation of the Gomonshu's pledge, which is in Japanese, the title is Watachi no Chikai, and that's translated as Our Pledge. But anyway, breaking out of my shell, I shall share a warm smile and speak gentle words, just like the kind Buddha. Not becoming lost in my greed, anger, and ignorance, I shall think and act with an open mind, just like the calm and peaceful Buddha. Not putting myself first, I will share in the joy and sadness of others, just like the compassionate Buddha. Realizing the gift of life I have received, I shall strive to live each day to its fullest, like the Buddha who tirelessly works to liberate all. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo. Okay, and so that's the verse, and we've been asked to copy this and then insert them in our service books so that we'll gradually be able to get used to this tradition, to this way of expressing our awareness and appreciation of our spiritual life, as Gomonshu Otani feels he would hope for us to be able to bring us together through the generations. So in a way, I guess he's offering that this is kind of something he's hoping that will resonate, help the younger and newer members of the tradition realize a closer sense of what our religious spiritual awareness is trying to help nurture, cultivate within our hearts and minds. And so, we can continue to discuss this and reflect upon it, but anyway, that was what I thought I'd like to share on this special occasion of the June monthly memorial with this new verse that was composed by our Gomonshu. And then the Japanese service will also be introducing the original Japanese version. And so those of you who would like the Japanese version, we'll be copying both of them and then be sharing them at various occasions and inserting, as I said, copies inside of our service book. So, with that, I'd again welcome you to our monthly memorial that stops to help us reflect upon this finite life that we have received. But within the reflection, the consideration of how really finite and fleeting our everyday life is to inspire, encourage us to begin to appreciate the preciousness of this moment that will never come again. And to consider what brings us together as a community, as we say Sangha, is to help encourage each other, support and sustain each other in this journey, in this endeavor of awakening to the Dharma, the reality of life being its impermanence, but most importantly, it's interdependence, that we do not live alone. To be able to appreciate that sense of being sustained by this energy of immeasurable life that we in the Shin Buddhist tradition refer to as Amida Butsu, the immeasurable light in life, wisdom and compassion that is the heart, the essence of our being. And to feel the sense of being sustained within that is the awakening of the true entrusting to that spirit, that awareness, and thereby come to appreciate all the causes and conditions that are constantly working unconditionally to make this moment possible. And so I've used the expression in the Shin Buddhist tradition, it is a tradition of appreciating the Dharma, the reality, the truth of our existence. And then to appreciate this momentary existence as the opportunity for awakening to that truth, experiencing the sense of energy, the sense of being that is making that awareness possible. And then from that, to become aware and appreciating, acknowledging in gratitude all the causes and conditions that are working that have gone into making this momentary experience possible. And so this is, I think, what in the Gomonshu's view, we'll, I don't know, perhaps have an occasion to discuss this further, but thinking about the idea of breaking out of my shell, the shell being the notion of ego, me, myself, and I, as an independent entity enclosed unto myself. And from that, opening up the shell and to realizing the smile and gentle words that are seen as the smile of the kindness, compassion of the Buddha. And then not becoming lost in my greed and anger, ignorance, we call it the three poisons. And then realizing how lost and alone I am within that condition. But from that awareness opens up our hearts and minds to be able to think and hear and receive with gratitude, peace, and serenity this life just as it is. And not putting myself first. Well, that's a big challenge, but the instinctual self that wants things my way and reacts to things accordingly, whether angrily with disappointment, frustration, resentment, or happily with contentment. But recognizing that this is the true condition, human condition that we all share together. And from that, compassion is to share in that joy and sorrow we all experience as mortal, fallible, finite human beings, which is the light of the compassion that embraces, illuminates us just as we are. And from this, realizing this gift, this moment, here and now, that we have received as the opportunity to realize, awaken, affirm that sense of being, to live, therefore, each day of our life to the fullest. This is the tireless energy of boundless wisdom and compassion that is working to liberate us from my self-contained, isolated shell. And when I see that and realize that energy, that heart, that spirit of compassion working to liberate me from my own greed, anger, and ignorance, is that the sense of opening to that energy of awakening that we affirm and connect with in the expression Namo Amida Butsu. So with that, once again, our pledge Breaking out of my shell, I will share a warm smile and speak gentle words, just like the kind Buddha. Not becoming lost in my greed, anger, and ignorance, I shall think and act with an open mind, just like the calm and peaceful Buddha. Not putting myself first, I will share in the joy and sadness of others, just like the compassionate Buddha. Realizing the gift of life I have received, I shall strive to live each day to its fullest, like the Buddha who tirelessly works to liberate all. Namo Amida Butsu, 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 Namo Amida Butsu.